We are back here on Coast to Coast AM. Hi there, Connie Willis in for Ian Punnett tonight. Please join me at conniewillis.com and join my email newsletter list. That would be nice if you don't want to join the shows, or at least learn more about the shows that way. conniewillis.com. Tonight, our guest, we have open lines coming up later. Our guest tonight is Melinda Leslie, investigator in the field of ufology. With 35 years of experience, 13 years she's been the owner of UFO sighting tours in Sedona, where she has conducted now 1,764 tours. I was number 1,761, and this is with the use of military night vision goggles. That's the way to go. And she is the only UFO sighting tour with a money-back guarantee. Love that. Love that. Melinda Leslie. You can find her at ufosightingtours.com, ufosightingtours.com. So, Melinda, time flies when you're on here. And we want to know how and why and where and the tunnels and all this good stuff, that you have all your theories and ideas of what it is. And that's what I want to get to is what your intuition, because you have these psychic abilities as well. So what is it telling you what it is, why it is, and how it is?
Well, my clients seeing it have often brought up, there's always at least one client a night who, bring this up and say, what with this new stuff we're seeing, like I said, the last 70 days is just off the charts. And it's like they're saying, Melinda, was this we're seeing going off the base? And we just went over the three ideas. ET's coming and going, choice one, choice two, ET craft in our possession that we're learning to fly or whatever, practicing with whatever. Three is reverse engineered, but based upon ET technology. But again, any one of those is staggering. That many ET craft coming and going, that many in our possession, or that much reverse engineered stuff that we have that many things flying repeatedly over 70 days. That would be a huge amount and would be so, many multitude of light years beyond, what people think we have in our ability with technology and development, that if we have stuff that can create these giant plasma fields and disappear. So going back to answering your question, what do I think? Well, my clients will say, Melinda, what if it's all three of those? What if it's some ETs, some training? What if it's also, some reverse engineered stuff? And I tell people all I know for sure is what we're seeing. The fact that it's going in and out of a very well-known, I know we're going to get more into this, deep underground military base.
Bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
Yeah, we'll go there. We'll get there. Chillax, chick. We're going to get there. No, just kidding.
Come on, woman.
I know. It's so much. But it's like, so my intuitive sense, well, I mean, logically I could say I don't know. All I know is what I'm witnessing,
right.
And I'm very clear with my clients about that.
Right.
But my intuitive sense is it might be a little bit of all three. But the other thing that I joked about with the tour, when it started happening, the first couple of, last days of September and the first couple of weeks of October, I joked about something that as time went by became less of a joke, which is I joked with my clients because I was already by that time in the tour informing them about the Schumer-Rounds Amendment. The UAPDA, UAP of course being unidentified aerial phenomena, the government's new term to get away from the negative stigma and the ridicule long time associated with the term, UFO, unidentified flying objects. So they rebranded the subject like, you read it, you go to resell, a concept to people or a product like corporations do, and they'll rebrand it. So the government cleverly rebranded UFOs to UAP. Okay, there we go. And we've all kind of accepted that term.
No, I haven't. I'm still UFO.
Gotcha.
I do not like it at all.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well,
I'm old school.
I get it. I kind of kicking and screaming myself,
Yeah.
But so now everyone kind of uses both, for clarity. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought in the midst of that. But
you were
so I
saying what
started to
you
say,
believe it is.
yeah, exactly. So I started to go, well, there was this part of that. Now, just in the last couple of days, we know that they kind of gutted that amendment. They kind of took out the teeth, and the teeth in it, and it was co-sponsored by Mike Brown's well-known Republican senator and Senator Chuck Schumer, a very well-known Democrat, and then had a lot of other, was totally bipartisan, both sides signing on, and included this language about eminent domain, where the government was going to take back control of technology fed to subcontractors, to aerospace companies and other subcontractors, to be reverse engineered and worked on. And they wanted to gain back control of that. Well, that was gutted out in the language. And then the other thing that kind of got removed, unfortunately, was this panel that was going to be put together by the White House, but approved on, just like when they approved judges and stuff by the Senate and Congress and the House, to approve the panel members that were going to be selected. So Senate and the House, all of Congress, would vote on it. Okay, so that kind of got gutted too. But but the reason I brought that up is that eminent domain part. My clients and I started to realize back in October, when it looked like eminent domain was going to pass, that as part of the UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena disclosure amendment, DA disclosure amendment, that we, in that bill we thought this might pass, and so I thought, gosh, could they be moving stuff around? And another, the friend of mine with the military background, when he came on the tour, said, God, it's like moving day at the base. They're moving stuff in and out. And are they moving it off planet? Like, do we have a base on the moon? Are they moving it there, or other places? Or are they moving it to a foreign country? Are they moving it to other underground bases in the U.S.? I mean, the truth is we don't know, but it had that feeling of. Another client of mine compared it to the pea under the cup, and where's the pea? Doing the moving the cups around, and so it's like they're moving stuff around, like they're trying to hide it. Now, I thought, okay, if that's the case, now that eminent domain doesn't seem to be such a big thing, would it stop? And no, the last couple of days, if anything, it was even picked up. So and I don't know if it's still related, but my intuitive sense is it might be a combination of things. I guess when I tune into intuitively, I get a confused vibe.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that it may be a combination of things. I know that there's ET and humans working together there, and so part of it I think is that, but I don't think it's all that. As a number of people, like I already stated repeatedly, have pointed out, it's a military operation, or at least has military aircraft involved, suggesting that military involvement, even if it is subcontractors at the base, that this is, in agreement with military or covert military to have that kind of presence in the air at the same time. And people said, why would all that be there? Well, again, a number of people pointed out that the DIA background, my military friend as well as others, that they've secured the airspace. Why have all those military aircraft swarming and then sometimes flying up to meet these things coming in, escorting them down to the base, or coming up with them, escorting them? Obviously, they're securing the airspace and they're making sure, like, safe passage. They're guarding these things coming and going. Another thing that's happened, very interestingly, that my friend with the military background pointed out, is starting in the beginning of October, it started at a certain time, which was 9:30 at night, and ended by about 10:30, and then it moved up like every 10 days, maybe 15 days, it's moved up by about half an hour, where now it's starting at like 7, peaking at like 8, or 7:45, peaking 7:30. I'll say 7:30. 7:30, peaking at about 8, and over by 8:30. And it's like, okay, why did it move up a half hour? Well, he had read a bunch of things about orbital launches for like NASA and whoever, JPL and certainly Elon Musk, SpaceX Corporation, and Jeff Bezos UFOs, etc., that they will launch things and have to move up the schedule because they're getting things in a certain orbit timing. Like it's important to get a certain orbit. And he said the constant moving up, because I was explaining that to him, he said he read this whole thing and he said, I did all this research about this, and he says, I think they're adjusting for orbit times. Either they're trying to get a bunch of stuff launched in a certain orbit pattern, or they're catching things coming in a certain orbit pattern. And that made perfect sense. I mean, because I was trying to figure out why I didn't have an exact date, but, 10, 12, 15 days, why was it jumping up a half hour? And that made perfect sense as to why. That now it starts at, in fact,
well, that would be very human-like to do that, though.
But
that sounds like
in
human
a certain
methods.
Orbit, if it's an energetic thing or a physics thing, that even craft coming in might have to do it on a certain orbit. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know what ETs are thinking in this. If it's them, maybe they need an orbit timing, or maybe it's a very human thing. But it made perfect sense for adjusting the time. And maybe for us to work with the ETs, it needs to be an orbit pattern. Maybe that is about us, but it doesn't. In other words, doesn't exclude that it could still be ET craft. I mean, there's so many things I don't know here. I am trying to get I've informed a few major researchers in the field. I'm going to do more. I'm going to direct them to listen to this and the archives of this, some other interviews I have coming up, etc. But you got the exclusive, Connie. You beat everybody to it.
There you go, baby. That's what it's about. Well, you were talking, you were pointing out to the company that was there, that was Lockheed. Do you believe that Lockheed is a part of it? And you talked about a tunnel as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to that. So going back to Bradshaw Ranch, which you just spent time with a bunch of experts on Bradshaw here, and what I call the OG of Bradshaw research, which is Tom Dongo, and I bow to him and learn mostly what I know about it from him and from some of the other researchers as well. Bradshaw itself was owned by the Bradshaw family, Robert Bradshaw, Bob Bradshaw, and it was a cattle ranch, but it was known for having a lot of paranormal activity. The last Bradshaw family member to live there, she isn't any longer. It was taken over by the government, but the last one to live there was Linda Bradshaw, and Linda Bradshaw and the Bradshaw family experience over all of its history, going back to the 40s, a constant paranormal activity of a variety of type. Linda Bradshaw got Tom Dongo involved as a paranormal researcher investigator, and he, was going out there making trips when the activity would peak to go study it and document it and get evidence, et cetera, et cetera. And a whole variety of paranormal things were happening there. There's a portal that opens up that you're looking into a different place in time. There are Bigfoot sightings, Connie, out there, lots, as I'm sure you heard about, and sightings of ships and other portal things, ghosts, ETs seen on the property, all sorts of haunted activity, all sorts of weird plasma things. I could go on and on. You just name it. It's a paranormal gamut of activity. And so Tom and Linda wrote books separately and together about it. And he's, again, been researching it for many, many years. Well, Bradshaw Ranch happens to fall right over part of this underground base. And now we knew that, or at least greatly suspected it before, and even the Bradshaw family did. But a TV show came in, if I may mention its name. Am I good to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So they came in and did extensive research there. And I'm talking about a spinoff from, first you have the Skinwalker TV show, was it Search for Skinwalker, whatever, about Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, well-known Emmy Award-winning TV show on the History Channel. And then it was so popular, it spun a spinoff show which is called Beyond Skinwalker, to go out and do investigations of other properties similar, and a little bit beyond that, properties and individuals that have similar stuff happen to Skinwalker Ranch. And so they started to hit some of these other ranches. Well, I think it was their first episode, now that I think about it, was about Bradshaw Ranch. And they've done 2 whole shows on even the first season. They had so much with Bradshaw, they did 2 shows, part 1 and part 2, about Bradshaw Ranch. Particularly the part 2. Both parts I highly recommend, and anyone can go to like Amazon Prime or the History Channel and look these up. And you pay a little bit, but it's inexpensive. But I recommend watching these. They're very well done. I'm actually reaching out, and if any of them are hearing, I do want to get in touch with the producers with that show.
So now you're going too far when it goes to that. So, well, let's go to the show. Let's get to the time is running out. You're running out. We're already about to take another break.
Okay.
But let's get to the tunnel. But Lockheed. But you also mentioned the underground base. Is that ET? Is that military? Is that both?
Both.
Okay, and how do we know
that's
this?
What I'm saying. Well, from so many accounts of insiders and people that have come forward saying both are there. The activity at Bradshaw and the surrounding areas that have been where people have seen ET and military working together above ground, and accounts from people who worked at the base saying underground, and then abductees who've been taken there, and in MILAB events, covert human military abduction events, who've been taken there, and their accounts. So you combine all that together. Now, so for all that reason, we think there's ETs and humans working together. And, I'll fully disclose here, I've talked about it, I think, previously on the show. I am a MILAB. I have had that happen, and me and a group of friends were taken there. And another time with another friend where she witnessed my being gone, so taken there. I've had other experiences to other locations too, but I've had at least 2 to this base, to the best of my recall and knowledge. But both times were witnesses, and one of those times I was taken with other people that I also remember. And then 2 years later, I had a gentleman come on my tour, want to talk to me privately the next day and share with me a whole experience I had never gone public about at that point. It was only 2 years after the event. I had never been public with my having had been there, and he starts to share an experience of having a human military abduction, of being taken there. And as he shared that with me, it matched. I was taken with 4 other people, 5 of us together. His story matched ours to a degree.
This is the stuff I'm looking for. All right. It's Melinda Leslie that is with us tonight, and she is telling us about what she's seeing and describing over the Sedona skies of strange lights, military involved, and there's been a jump in activity recently as well. So you can find out more about her. Her website is UFOsightingtours.com, UFOsightingtours.com. Lots more information there that you can learn about, and more as well when she comes back. We have open lines showing up later as well too, and we'll see if she can't stick around for the first hour and answer your questions. Stay with us. Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM. It's Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with you tonight. Coming up in next hour, in the last 2 hours, we're going to be having open lines for you. That's always fun to do, and I'm looking forward to that. Currently, though, we're talking with Melinda Leslie of UFOsightingtours.com. That's where you can find out more information about her and what she does, UFOsightingtours.com. And I love that she gives the guarantee, money back guarantee on her sighting tour. So you have to give money back if you don't see anything that you don't agree that is the real deal. She takes out military night vision goggles when she goes out, and it's absolutely amazing. I got about 15 minutes with her this last week in Sedona when I was out there researching myself, the Bradshaw Ranch, and seeing what she's talking about. We were right there, and it was cold at that point when we were out there. Melinda with us right now. So Melinda, we were talking right before the break about the tunnel evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And by the way, you're going to stick around with us for the first hour of open line and answer questions? Yeah. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, be happy to.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sure people have questions. I'm bouncing all over the place. They're probably going, what the heck is she doing?
They're like, Connie, put the reins on that woman.
Yeah, man.
Talk about but the tunnel evidence, it's amazing. See, I believe we are the surface people. I absolutely believe it. And underground, there's just so much evidence of so much other stuff happening.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'll get right to the evidence for the tunnel. I mean, there's evidence for the whole base, as we were saying. But Beyond Skinwalker TV show did these scans with, I forget the exact technology they used, but it was a form of ground penetrating radar. And they did like a couple 100 yards right over part of the base property and found, right part of the Bradshaw Ranch property, and they found that what's called the field of Bradshaw Ranch anyways is right over this tunnel. And they hired an outside company, and the outside company that did this, and so they sent up the drones with equipment hanging on them, that would do this ground penetrating radar stuff. And they came back and said that it's 50 feet wide, and it goes perfectly straight for hundreds of yards. Well, the owner of the company then on the TV show put a line in, brought up on the Google Earth, whatever, put a line overlaid where they did the scans and continued the line, and it goes straight to a cement processing plant right out. If anyone's been here, it's right outside what's called Clarkdale. So you have Cottonwood, Clarkdale, and then just up the street from Clarkdale is where we were in Jerome. So that cement, and we were looking down. The place we went out and did our skywatch there, we were looking down right on that cement processing plant, all lit up at night. But going from there straight, it goes 12 miles from there under Bradshaw Ranch, and then continues out under part of Sycamore Canyon, what's called Kasner Mountain behind it, Sycamore Canyon, and then what's called Secret Mountain. And then all of that is part of Sycamore Canyon, and right next to Sycamore Canyon is, no joke, you guys, Government Canyon. On the topographical map, it's actually called
you got Government Canyon and Secret Canyon. Who's naming these?
Canyon. No, like somebody had a sense of humor. It was, talk about hide in plain sight. Okay, now, so they scanned for thousands of yards and came up with this perfectly straight 50-foot wide tunnel deep underground. But when, again, the owner of the show put it on Google Earth and continued the line on the computer, it went right to the cement processing plant. Well, I had heard through the grapevine, let's just say, that there might be a Lockheed connection to that. So I took it upon myself, rather than go after vague stuff, I thought, if I do the research, then I can say I did the research, and I'm citing my own research. Okay, so I did a lot of research online. The facility is owned by a company called Martin Marietta Materials. Well, if people out there know Lockheed Martin, the aerospace company, well known for being involved in the possible reverse engineering, or more than possible, I think they are. Quite frankly, there's a ton of evidence for Lockheed Martin's involvement in the reverse engineering program. And there's a whole bunch of things that point to that. Whole bunch. That would be a whole other show just about that. Okay, so Martin Marietta Materials, I said, well, that's interesting because Lockheed Martin is Martin Marietta. That's where the Martin part of Lockheed Martin comes from. Owner Glenn Martin and Lockheed buying him out, and it was a materials company that made the aluminum for all the aircraft for Lockheed Martin. Okay, so that's kind of the background there. But they also do, conveniently enough, they have all these cement plants all over the U.S. So what do you need for large underground installations? But a lot of cement.
This is true, yeah.
They're totally, that's what the tunnels are coated with, made out of. That's what the underground installations would all be, cement. That's what works, as the leading building material. And these just happen to be. Okay, so I don't know that there's an absolute connection there. Yeah,
that's interesting, though. Okay, wow, yeah.
Here's the absolute stuff. Is my doing the research to find out, okay, it's owned by Martin Marietta Materials. I actually drove down the street to that. You guys passed it on your way to Jerome. I drove down that street. They have a security gate, but before you get to the security gate, there's a couple places that branch off to some other offices, and one of those branches off, and there's a big stone sign with a sign on it that says Martin Marietta Materials, and it says Clarkdale Quarry, and has the address, all of that on the sign. So I took a picture of that, proving that they own it, okay? And then I did research online to say who owns Martin Marietta Materials. Well, long story short, I ended up finding an article in the Washington Post from a couple years back, and the Washington Post article went on and on about the owners of Martin Marietta Materials, and it's owned 81% by Lockheed Martin. So 81% ownership of Martin Marietta Materials is owned by Lockheed Martin. How convenient that Lockheed Martin, therefore, owns, through Martin Marietta Materials, one of its subgroups, owns what happens to be what is very possibly or extremely likely to be a tunnel entrance to the base. And now there's other information besides the guy continuing the line and to show it goes directly, not only does it go directly to the cement processing plant, it goes directly to one particular building on the cement processing plant with no other buildings on that line, right the direction it goes, right as it goes under Bradshaw, where they found thousands of yards of this tunnel, 50 feet wide. Again, it goes straight there, and it just happens to be it goes past different processing areas, the cement processing quarry and everything, but it's all like mounds of dirt and stuff until it goes to that one building. Okay, so now I'm not saying that building is the entrance, but it's anecdotal evidence, definitely, if not hard evidence. Okay, but I found the hard evidence that it is Martin Marietta Materials and that is owned 81% by Lockheed Martin. So there you go. So I think there's a direct connection. Now, the other part of that is Tom Dongo and these other researchers have interviewed people who've worked there over the years in security, and they say in the middle of the night, large semi-trucks come into the quarry, go back to this building in the back of the property, and they go there. And then those security people say, we'll go later to do our security checks and runs. There's no semi-trucks back there. So they know those semi-trucks are disappearing into somewhere because there's no trucks there or any in the building. So the security people have said they suspect that it has a false floor or something because these trucks go back there and don't come out. Like they're making shipments with, large semi-trucks coming in the middle of the night in this tunnel system.
So does the tunnel system match up with the lights coming up and the helicopter area?
Yeah, well, the tunnel goes back to under Bradshaw and then goes back into Sycamore Canyon and Secret Canyon and Secret Mountain, which is where the lights are coming up. Now, oddly, a few of the lights, it changed locations from one place in all of October, like they were testing maybe one of the entrances to the base where everything was happening. And then in November, it changed, and it's been there since to like a different location that seems to be 5 to 7 miles further away. And I was talking to Tom Dongo, and I said, do you have evidence, or is there anything to say the base would be over here because it's so much further away? Would they have 2 big entrances being used? And he said, yes. And he said years ago he did research because all these giant amber lights many years ago were coming up from that area. And he said, yes, the area that you're seeing them and one other place further away. And so there's 3 locations that he said are known for these amber lights coming up from years and years of his, doing this research. But in the past, he said it would maybe go on for, he said 10 days to maybe a month's worth of activity. He said it never lasted as long as 70 days. I mean, he said it was like it would go on for a week or 2 or 3 at the most. He said it was just, a short period of time, 10 days or something of activity. And he said, I've never heard it continually going on for 70 days like it has now. So,
so let me ask about the amber lights. So when when you see the amber lights, the helicopters are around them and they come up from the ground and they like shoot up. Is that correct?
Yeah, there 2 things are happening. They're appearing up in the sky out of nowhere, like they're coming in as if coming in from space or into the atmosphere anyways, and then coming down. And then as they come down, they do what we call a power-up. They get really big and bright. And then they go behind the hills or disappear. Okay. And then we're seeing things, particularly as later in the hour, we start to see things that come up from behind the hills as an amber light, power up quite bright. I mean, go from being a small point of light to like what we're seeing, at a distance from when we normally see them. They're like dime size at arm's length, or even nickel. They're dime and nickel size at arm's length, giant white lights. Amber. I'm sorry. And then they get brighter, and then they either disappear all at once or they rapidly go up. And then disappears or going up.
And they're dime size and nickel size from where you're standing.
From where we're standing.
So people will know. So what do you think that would be size-wise?
Well, because we're seeing light, so we don't know the size of the object creating the light. And I'll tell you one thing that's a side note that I think I've told you, but for the listener's sake. One of the nights when we were seeing it behind Kasner Mountain, so we were closer, and Kasner's right behind Bradshaw Ranch. I didn't know this. This was back in October. I had told Tom all about this. He had told Jeremiah. So Tom had told Jeremiah before I did. Jeremiah and Alexandra, who you were visiting with here, they go out and they're at Bradshaw. And so we see giant amber lights coming up from behind the hill, heading over Bradshaw. I didn't know they were there. They said, Melinda, these amber lights came over them, and one of them was so low, it was a great big black triangle. So one of those lights, when it came so low over them, came right over them. They said, Melinda, as it came towards us, it was a big amber light. As it came closer, it was a triangle. And then it hovered right over them. And they both say it hovered right over them for a while before it shot straight up. Whoops.
So what are you saying about this activity that deals with the cover-up?
Well, okay. As I already said, the implications are staggering, that this is either a lot of ET involvement or ET craft in our possession or reverse engineering based upon that. It says to me that there is a lot more going on than anyone fathomed or dreamt of before, because we're seeing so much, 70 days, 50 things a night, come and go from this base, escorted by military coming in to meet it, flying up with it, etc. And you just go, wait a second, this is a lot of activity. And in the midst of this, we're getting this pushback on the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and the UAPDA, the Disclosure Amendment, which is 63 pages long, but it's been gutted. So with that pushback, that predominantly seemed to come from two members of Congress. I won't say their names, but two members, for the sake of the show, probably, but two members of Congress who really had the major aerospace companies and contractors in their districts. Very major, like the two biggest states known for that. Okay. In their districts, and they were leading this pushback, and they had so much power, whatever, I don't want to get into politics, but they had so much power to persuade other congressional members to fight this thing, when originally it seemed like the overwhelming majority of them were in favor of it. We were hearing that from the congressmen themselves and from their aides and from the congressmen themselves. So we thought, okay, this is this overwhelming majority, and then somehow these guys twisted everybody's arms. And obviously, they're backed by large amounts of money, by these aerospace companies and whatnot. And you can look that up. It's all public record stuff. I'm not saying anything conspiratorial. It's on the public records. So you go, wait a second, this pushback. And now I'm realizing with what we're seeing, I'm like, wait a second, this is a lot more than any of us realize. And if I have the hard evidence that says that Lockheed Martin owns the tunnel entrance, this tunnel entrance known that the TV show Science, Pure Science verified was there, you just go, wait a second, there's a tunnel there, and it goes to there, and that happens to be owned by Lockheed Martin. I mean, it's too perfect. You know what I mean? And so you go, wait a second. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what you do. You go out there and you put the pieces of the puzzle together and you try to figure it out. That's what all us researchers do. And you've been doing a lot of work. So I'm happy that you're able to tell us what
And I
your
think,
findings are. But
yeah, and
but go ahead.
what's
Go ahead.
going on and why. Exactly. It explains in droves why there was so much pushback
Well,
on
what
the amendment.
the most interesting thing to me, and I'm happy, we're about to come to a break here. I'm happy that we're going to start open lines. You're going to be there for the first hour, so just know that everybody out there, you can call in if you'd like to ask her a question about this. But what I find the most interesting of all is if you're seeing the military around, you're seeing these just crazy amber lights just shooting up and powering up and all these other things. And I'm a big fan of James Gilliland and his powering up and all. I've
Yeah,
seen that at a SETI myself,
absolutely.
and it's amazing stuff. But and night vision goggles are the best. They're so cool. But the interesting thing is, if they wanted to keep all this secret, the thing is, lights are involved. And if people are living around these areas and at night they see lights, well, you're going to see this stuff happening. So to me, if this is something that's us related, then we would be somewhere, because we're smart people, we would be somewhere else, and we would be hiding that to where no civilians would be seeing these lights at night. So why would they be circling around areas where civilians can see us or see them? And that would be because they have no choice in the location. It's
Yeah.
where it's actually happening naturally.
Yes. Yeah.
So you
And
can agree
Connie,
on that.
yeah, absolutely. I was going to go there, but you just went there. It's because the base is there, and so what we're seeing is clearly because there's an underground base there.
So we
Otherwise,
got to
none
go.
of this makes any sense.
Right. We got to go. We're going to go into open line. So thank you so much for being here. Again, Melinda is going to stick around so that we can, you can ask her questions. So the first hour, ask questions for Melinda. Then after that, we'll all join in together and hold hands and do all that number. I love to do that with you. So Melinda Leslie is with us. You can find her once again at UFOsightingtours.com. That's where you can find out her information at UFOsightingtours.com. Melinda Leslie. Connie Willis here. Open lines coming up next. Stay with us here on Coast to Coast AM.